Friday night took care of my weekday blues. I woke up, had breakfast, and read the news. I'm feeling relaxed, refreshed, and renewed. But I feel like there's something I'm forgetting to do.
Hey, Toby, the show's about to start.
Oh yeah, it's a Saturday show. 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 It's a Saturday show.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Show, AADL TV's one and only Saturday morning kids variety show. My name is Toby, and this is Otto, and we are your hosts with the mosts. Well, today, before we get started, we have a big announcement to make.
Oh, so exciting.
Yep, we are proud to announce that the Saturday Show has its very first spin-off. So, if you've been enjoying the game show Snub Cube, stay tuned after this episode of the Saturday Show to see a brand new episode of Snub Cube. And if you haven't seen Snub Cube, don't worry. It's a game show where real kids like you face off against puppets for non-existent prizes and real summer game points. So if you're looking for a boost to your game points, tune in and you can find out how you can be a contestant on Snub Cube and have a chance at winning that 5,300 point jackpot.
I love that show, Toby. It's a real hoot.
That it is, bud, and Herschel Knapstein does a fantastic job.
Okay, Toby, so what's the theme for today?
Otto, today's theme is something that's very near and dear to my heart. Making.
Making what?
Well, Otto, that's a good question. The answer is really making anything. What we're going to talk about today is sharing ideas, knowledge, materials, and tools so that you and anyone at home can make almost anything they can imagine.
So is making like inventing?
A little bit, Otto. Makers from around the world make some really complex and really cool things like fire-breathing robots or their own musical synthesizers, but making doesn't have to be complicated. We've got a makerspace at the downtown library called the Secret Lab, and in the Secret Lab we do all sorts of making activities, everything from carving a boat out of soap to crocheting and knitting and sewing and making your own books and even making your own guitar.
Did you say make your own instrument?
I did, Otto, but before we get any deeper into this, why don't we find out what the word of the day is?
Hey, Kashi, how's your garden growing?
Oh, it's great. I can't believe how many things there are. Carrots and beets and lettuce.
Oh, you know, beets are some of my favorite things.
Yum, yum.
Well, I think we should get right into our word of the day. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay, here we go. Let's see what it says.
Circuit. Circuit. That sort of sounds like circle.
It does sound like circle.
What's a circuit?
Well, you know, I love dealing with electronics and making things, and a circuit can be the path that electricity takes in some kind of electronic gizmo.
Oh, did we fix Lexi once and fix her circuit?
That's right. Lexi had a short circuit, and we got her all up and running well.
Good, Lexi.
That's right. Kashi, do you like to make things?
Oh, gosh, yes. I like to do knitting. I like to cook. Oh, I really like Legos. And I like to use clay.
Well, that sounds great. It's nice that this whole episode today is all about making things.
Oh, wow.
Well, are you ready for our summer game code?
Yes.
It's a doozy. So, this is a person.
Okay.
She, and the code is her last name, and it's 6 letters. She was a rear admiral in the Navy. She was a computer pioneer. And her work led to the language COBOL, which is still in use today.
Wait, she wrote a computer language?
Yep, her work led to that language.
Wow.
And I know it's still in use because I've had to program in COBOL.
Oh.
And here's a great clue. She has the same last name as the sheriff in Stranger Things.
Oh, my.
Do you think you know who it is?
Maybe.
Well, good luck. And if you know who it is, you can go to play.aadl.org. Okay? See you next week.
Bye.
Thanks, Kashi and Christopher.
Okay, Toby, so what are we going to make today?
Well, my friends from the library are going to show us some really cool things that you can make at home. And while the folks are watching those segments, I'll show you some of the really cool musical instruments that I've made at the library.
Sounds great!
Hey everybody, Jonah and I are ready to show you how to make something at home, and you can make a game out of stuff that you have at home. It's really cool. So the main thing, here's what you're going to need to make this game. You need a long box like this. This is a lid to a box actually that I found, but you could get a box like that you get clothes in for presents, like those long skinny boxes or something.
Yeah, and you can cut off the tippy tops that stop out.
You could cut off the tippy tops, because what we're going to do is take this box and we're going to make a game where we roll a ball around the box and see where it goes. So you're going to need a ball of some kind, or we have these little poof things. You could use that, or a marble, or maybe smaller than a ping pong ball. Then you're going to need some toilet paper rolls or a paper towel roll. And then we're going to need, Jonah, what are these? Scissors. And last but not least, some glue or tape. We're going to use hot glue today because it's the fastest. It'll glue everything quickly and then we don't have to wait for it to dry. But at home you could use regular glue. So first things first, we're going to take our toilet paper rolls and we're going to cut them into like 3 pieces maybe. I cut one already. So I took this and I cut it, and then I'm going to cut it again so that we have a lot of pieces about that big, something like that. So Jonah, let's cut these into pieces.
On this line right there.
Sure. So now we have lots of these. How many do we have, Jonah? Let's count them.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
We have 9. You can make as many as you want. If you want to do 6, if you want to do 16. Now, the cool part is we're going to glue them onto here. Yeah. Almost anywhere you want, and make a maze for your ball to roll through. So, I'm going to use the hot glue because I'm the grown-up. And Jonah, you stick it where you want it to go, okay?
And we have our game.
Our game. So now, the last thing we need, we're about done, is we need a pen. And we're going to write numbers on our game to see which order you need to roll the ball through. So, I'm going to do it real quick. We'll start with, which one is number 1, Jonah? Whichever one you like. Okay, you write number 1. And I'll hold it so you can write on it. So you guys, that's it. You made a game. Watch this. You see all those numbers? You start with number 1 and you try to roll your ball all the way to number 2 and then to number 3 and all the rest. Let's try it, Jonah. Put your ball on there. Put your ball right there. Ooh. Whoa, get it to roll through. Whoa, get it to roll into number 2. We gotta do it. We can even do it together. Whoa. We get it! All right, you guys. Have fun with your game at home and keep making stuff.
If you're making a game, if you don't have one of these boxes.
What is it? Well, it's about that long. It's got a handle, a little bit of a ridge here so it won't slip out of my hand. It's got a metal tip. One tip, the longer tip, is very sharp. The other one has a little red ball on it. It's not so sharp. What is it?
Hi everyone, it's Lauren. Let's take a draw break. You'll need a piece of paper folded in half, hamburger style, a hard surface to draw on, a pencil, and some colors for later. First, start by drawing a big panel around your page. Next, draw a rectangle that's taller than it is wider toward the top of the inside of that panel. Next, draw a zigzag pattern across the top of this rectangle. Go ahead and shade that in. Next, draw 2 skinny perpendicular rectangles inside this big rectangle toward the top like this. They're perpendicular, they're skinny, and they should form what looks like a big block letter T. Okay, now draw 2 more tiny rectangles hiding underneath the crossbar of the T like this. Okay, now go to the bottom of your T. Off to the left and right, draw 2 diagonal lines that hit the corners of the bottom of your big rectangle. Okay, so far so good. Next we're going to draw 3 half circles, 2 tiny ones and 1 large one, like this. Okay, have you figured out what we're drawing yet? I'll bet you'll figure it out after we add these next shapes. On the left and right of the rectangle, let's draw a couple of other small rectangles. And let's draw some bolts on the bottom of either side of the rectangle. Now you know who this is, right? That's right, Frankenstein's monster. So let's add a few more details to make him look even more monsterly. Very nice. Since you have some space above your monster head, why not make your monster talk? And below, you could give your monster a body. And maybe put your monster somewhere on Earth, walking around. Oh, and don't forget to add some color. Thanks for taking a draw break with me.
So Otto, this is a musical synthesizer that I made at the library. The plans for it come from a book by Ann Arbor's own Dave Nelson. He's got a couple of really cool books that have some awesome projects that we could do at home or the folks at home could do at home, especially because we can pick up books from the library now. And if you'd like more information about those specific titles, you can go to aadl.org/The Saturday Show and poke around. There's some really cool resources there. All right, Otto, why don't you check this out?
Is that what I think it is? It's got knobs and buttons and switches.
Yep, it's all plugged in. Why don't you go ahead and hit that button, Otto?
Okay. Yeah, and watch this, bud. Wow, that is so cool.
It is cool, bud, but like I said earlier, making doesn't have to be complicated. Why don't we check out what Allison's doing?
It's time to make a mess. Hi everybody! Today we're going to be making a mess by making an elephant toothpaste experiment. This is something you're going to need adult supervision for, and you are going to need goggles, gloves, and that adult to help you with it. Let's go over all the things we're going to need for this experiment and then we'll do it. The first thing that we need is 20 volume hydrogen peroxide. You can find this at like beauty stores or hair stores, anything that would sell hair products. This is really powerful hydrogen peroxide, much more powerful than what you would find in maybe your medicine cabinet at home. You can use regular 3% hydrogen peroxide, but this is going to give us a much bigger reaction. We are also going to be using red food coloring. You can use any color you want. I just chose red for today. We are going to be using active dry yeast, a little bit of dish soap, and then we will also need 3 tablespoons of warm water. Does not need to be hot, just warm water. Some measuring tools so that we measure out exactly the right amount of ingredients. And then for today, I'm going to be using a graduated cylinder or a measuring cylinder. If you don't have one of these at home, which I'm guessing most of us don't, you can also use a 16-ounce plastic water bottle or something similar. When selecting something in place of the graduated cylinder, you want something that has really tall sides and a small top and bottom. So, I'm going to put our graduated cylinder down, and then let's go ahead with the experiment. First thing I did was made sure I have gloves, goggles, and an adult. Luckily for us, I am an adult. I also have already gone ahead and poured 1/2 cup of the 20 volume hydrogen peroxide into this container here. And this is the part that you're going to need an adult's help with. We are going to just pour this hydrogen peroxide into our graduated cylinder. I'm doing this away from my face, and I'm being really careful not to splash or spill anything. So, there we go. Great, I'm going to put this down. Until the reaction has taken place, this hydrogen peroxide can burn your skin or eyes, which is why we're being so careful with our gloves, goggles, and adult. So make sure that the adult is doing all of the things with the hydrogen peroxide until the experiment has taken place, until the reaction has taken place. Next, I am going to add about 10 drops of red food dye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Whoa, it's a little extra, but that's all right. I'm going to move this to the side, and then we're also going to add just a couple drops of soap, and the soap is actually just to help us kind of slow down the reaction so that we can watch everything taking place. I'm going to go ahead and oh, I have red everywhere. I'm going to have an adult help me with this. I'm going to give it a little swirl to kind of mix it up. And I'm being really careful not to splash or spill, and I'm keeping this very far away from my face until this is all just about the same color. There we go. Great. I'm going to go ahead and put the graduated cylinder down, and then I'm going to take my cup of 3 tablespoons of warm water, and I am going to add our dry yeast to it. We just need 1 tablespoon of dry yeast, so I'll add that now. And then I forgot a spoon, so I'm just going to use my measuring spoon to stir this up. And we want this to end up being similar to the consistency of melted ice cream. It's going to be a little goopy, and the yeast really does not smell very good, so just watch out for that. Whew. Well, this is looking nice and disgusting. Ooh. I'm gonna get this extra yeast out. Yeah. Alright, well, this is gross, but that's science for you. And then our last step is going to be to pour this yeast water into the graduated cylinder. So we'll do a countdown from 5 in just a second, and then once this is poured in, I'll take a step back so that we can watch the reaction. You ready? Let's do it on 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is an example of an exothermic reaction. This means that the experiment actually created heat. With your gloves still on, you can actually touch the foam and feel that it's hot to the touch. Each one of these foam bubbles is filled with oxygen. The yeast quickly broke apart the oxygen from the hydrogen peroxide, and because it did this really quickly, we created lots and lots of bubbles. This foam is just water, soap, and oxygen, so it is going to be really easy to clean up. We can just use a sponge on it, and any extra liquid can be poured right down the drain. Thanks so much for joining us for our elephant toothpaste experiment. Be safe and have fun.
Hi everybody, my name is Evelyn. I'm one of the youth librarians, and I am here today to show you how a sewing machine works. So I love to sew because I like to make my own clothes, and a sewing machine can really help you do that a lot faster. So today I'm going to show you this sewing machine. This is the Husqvarna Viking Opal 650, and you can check this one out from the Ann Arbor District Library. This is actually the library sewing machine, so that's pretty cool. So a sewing machine, it looks pretty fancy. It's got a lot of different stuff, but basically it's got a few things. It's got a needle here that goes up and down. It's got a place down here where one thread goes, and a place up here where another thread goes. So those are kind of the main things. To show you how it works, I'm going to use two different colored threads. So the thread you put in the bottom here, your bottom thread, that's called a bobbin. And for this one, you attach it here, and then you put this little cover back on. And then for the top thread, I'm going to use this pink one. That way you can really see the difference. This is called a spool cap. Put that on just so that your thread doesn't go shooting off when you start the machine. This is how you thread it. Whoops, I lost the end of it. It looks pretty complicated because it goes through this whole maze path, but once you've done it a few times, you sort of get used to it. Then you get here, and then this part, you have to thread it through here. This is my fabric, and it might look a little bit funny right now, this fabric, and that's because when you sew, a lot of times you put the fabric the right sides together. So that's why it looks like that. Then I'm gonna put the fabric under here. I put the presser foot down. There's a little lever back here that lets me do that. And over here is where you can pick any kind of different stitch you want. So right now it's just on a regular straight stitch. It's just gonna be a straight line, that's what I want. But you can see up here, if you check this one out of the library, you can do all these cool little weird stitches like bicycles or flowers or leaves, different cool designs. So I'm just gonna sew this line and then I'll show you how it turned out. So the first thing it's doing is it's making a knot there, and then there it goes. And I'm going to take my pins out as I go. And as you can see, this is a lot faster and more even than it would be if I was sewing it using a regular hand needle, like a regular needle and thread. So I'm going to get to the end. I'm going to press a button that's called the fix button that'll make another knot. Then lift up the presser foot, pull the thread out. Sewing machines a lot of times have a little cutter right there. All right, so then you can see I've got my pink top thread on this side, and then the other side is white. Sewing is basically just making a lot of little knots all along so it holds the fabric together. And then when I turn this inside out, you can see how it's together, and you can't really see that seam at all. It just looks like they're two pieces together. So that's how a sewing machine works. Sewing is really fun. I hope you guys try it out.
Okay, when we left off, they had just called the fire department. Now we're on chapter 12. In reality, Leroy Ninker was a small thief on the back of a big pig. But in Leroy's mind, he was a cowboy riding a bucking bronco in the Wild West. Being a cowboy is hard work, said Leroy Ninker. I need some refreshment. Leroy reached into his shirt pocket. He grabbed hold of a butter barrel candy. He unwrapped it with one hand and he put it in his mouth. Ah, said Leroy Ninker, this is the life. But just then, the pig kicked up her heels. The pig bucked. The pig reared. Leroy Ninker lost his grip. Yippee! Said Leroy. He flew through the air. Aye, said Leroy. He landed on his back. Oh, said Leroy Ninker. Chapter 13. Mercy sniffed. There was that delightful smell again. Butter! Where was it coming from? She looked all around. She saw a little man lying on the ground. She sniffed his face. The little man said, that tickles. Mercy snuffled the man's shirt. He said again. In order to snuffle the man better, Mercy sat on top of him. Get off me, said the man. Mercy put her snout in the man's shirt pocket, and she snuffled some more. Oh, said the little man. Help! Mercy found a piece of candy. She bit into it. It was sweet. It was lovely. It was very, very buttery. Mercy sat on top of the little man and chewed. A siren wailed. Aw, shucks, said the man. Chapter 14. The fire department arrived. We've been to this house before, said the fireman named Ned. You are right, said the fireman named Lorenzo. This is the house with the pig. And the toast, said Ned. We ate toast at this house. I see the pig, said Lorenzo. He pointed at Mercy. The pig is sitting on somebody. Good grief, said Ned. Ned and Lorenzo got out of the fire truck. They saw Mr. and Mrs. Watson running out the front door of their house. They saw Eugenia Lincoln and baby Lincoln running out the front door of their house. This is an interesting job, isn't it? Said Ned. Very interesting, said Lorenzo. Next, we will see what happens when the firemen come across Mercy Watson and Leroy Ninker.
All right, Otto, if you like that last instrument, check this out. So Otto, This is an example of something that I made at the library using all the different tools that the library has. The side panels are engraved on our laser engraver as well as cut out on the laser cutter. The front panels were made with our 3D printers, and all of the little knobs are connected to these oscillators that we soldered together at the library. So this is a good example of a bunch of different tools put together to make one awesome synthesizer. We started this project in November at the Ann Arbor Synth Expo, and when it's done, it's going to have 120 knobs and lights across the front panel that you can move around to make different noises. It's very cool.
Well, what else do you make at the library?
Well, Christopher, you know Christopher. He does a lot of work with a Raspberry Pi at the library. It's a little tiny computer that's about this big.
Well, I've seen computers before.
Yeah, but where the Raspberry Pi differs is that it has little pins that can be connected to things to control physical objects like lights or motors. Here, let's take a look at what he's doing.
Thanks, Toby. I wanted to show you a couple projects with the Raspberry Pi that I've made from home. And I know many of you don't have a Raspberry Pi at home, but once the library reopens, we'd be happy to show you how to build either of these in the secret lab or at an open jam. So the first project here is a door alert. So when the door is opened, it sends an alert to a speaker and plays a video game clip from my childhood. So this is the unit that I built. There's a battery here. This is the Raspberry Pi, and it's a really old one. And it's nice to be able to dedicate this old Pi to just one function. This is the circuit that I made, and there's a sensor right over here that's going to be connected to the door. So when I hit this button, it's going to blink about 10 times. We're going to shut the door, and once the door is opened, it's going to play an alarm at my desk. Here we go. Shut the door. All right, it should be ready now.
Intruder alert, intruder alert.
All right, the second project I want to show you is using TensorFlow Lite on the Raspberry Pi. So TensorFlow is a pretty amazing program. It's used with computer vision and to do AI and identify things on the screen. So let me show this to you. And again, this is just using the Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to quickly open up a terminal, and I'm going to get into that folder, and I'm going to run my virtual environment, and I'm going to start the AI. So right now you're seeing the Raspberry Pi using TensorFlow identifying things on the screen. So it's looking at this and it's seeing a TV. And as I move things around, it's going to identify a lot of books on the screen. And I'm going to try this for the first time. If I show it and, well, it didn't get elephant, but it did say teddy bear, which is pretty amazing. And let's try this toothbrush. And I saw a baseball bat, but didn't get the toothbrush. So the model that we're using hasn't been trained completely. It's a kind of simple model. But anyway, I wanted to show you that because I think it's really an amazing fun thing and has a lot of uses. This is what a lot of autonomous vehicles are using now. And again, we'd be happy to show you how this works when the library is open at a Secret Lab event. Take care.
What is it? It is a seam ripper. A seam ripper is used in sewing to literally rip the seams that I sew that I don't want, whether I'm sewing by hand or by machine. Here was a mask I was making and I wanted the elastic to be pulled longer, so I had to rip a couple of these seams out to make room. So what I do is I use the sharp tip and I put it under one of my seams and it cuts it. This whole part here is sharp and it does a cut. And I can just keep seam ripping and seam ripping and seam ripping, and then you can see my seam, I can pull it out. It got even looser. So this, my friends, is a seam ripper used in sewing.
Hi, my name is Nicole, and today I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I make these robots. I make my robots out of wooden blocks. I attach them with metal parts, and I add details with paint afterwards. So when I put a robot together, the first thing I do is attach the head, the arms, and the legs using screws. When that's done, I paint the whole robot silver. Then I add little extra paint details, rust colored, just to give the robot a little bit of extra personality. My favorite part of making a robot is the very end, when I get to add extra scrap details, little scrap parts that I found at recycling centers, places like Scrapbox in Ann Arbor, or just lying around the house. These arms are made out of bits from a spiral-bound notebook. Here's springs and gears, and the eyes are just glass beads. So it's really easy to find spare parts to put together a robot of your own. Now I use lots of tools to make these robots, and because they're so small, I use very small tools, like my very tiny handsaw, and my little half-sized hammer. This really helps me get the details on my robots right. As you can see behind me, I've made hundreds of robots, and because of the cool scrap parts I use, they all look a little different. You can make scrap robots at home, just with stuff that you found around the house. And that is just a little bit about how I make my robots.
Well, folks, that's all we have for you today. If you've been enjoying the show, remember to like and subscribe. And if you'd like to dive a little bit deeper into the topic of making, you can go to aadl.org/thesaturdayShow and check out some of the resources there. And until then, see you next time. Bye!